Hi, I'm Brett Jennings, and for the last 12 years, I've traveled the country to meet, mentor, and mastermind with some of the brightest and best minds both inside and outside of real estate. I've taken those ideas, brought them back to our team of experts, and sold hundreds of homes per year all across Silicon Valley, and this is how we do it. So the topic we wanted to talk about, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to make sure I got all my screens open that we're going to want to access here. Let me switch over to screen share. Lauren, I may need, oh no, I'm cool. Let me do it.
And I'm recording, Brett.
Cool. So our topic that we're going to talk about today is getting buyers to write realistically. So obviously, you know, the challenge that we're faced with now, I think now that the buyers are coming back out, which is great, but the concern or the challenge or frustration many of you have been experiencing is like, hey, my buyers kind of want to, you know, they think that they're going to get some kind of great deal in the COVID environment, which depending on the price point and area might be true, but in most of the areas where we sell, that's not true. So and this will be a little bit of a workshop, so I'm going to ask for some collaboration from y'all to hear, like, you know, we're developing some of these talk tracks together here as we do this. But first and foremost, right, when we want to get buyers to write realistically, the number one thing is their mindset. And so the important thing is that we want to have taken the time to get their belief structure aligned really with with reality. And it's a lot easier to show someone and bring them to the conclusion that where they need to be and how high they need to jump, or, you know, how far they got to go to reach that brass ring to get the house, right? But that work needs to be done on the front end before you put pen to paper. If you're going to try to get your buyers after you've written the offer to come up, you're too far down the line. Ideally, you're going to want to do some market education and have this dialogue. Ideally, on the front end, when you do your buyer consultation / presentation, and I would say it's probably most appropriate probably after you get a commitment to work together. You said, hey, these are the 5 things that we do, the 3 things that we ask. Now, next step, we just got to go out and look at properties. So in the tail end of that conversation, or before you actually go to sit down and put pen to paper and write an offer, okay? Because their mindset is going to be critical for your ability to get success throughout this whole process. The goal here is to educate them on the market and then create confidence. The 3 things is create confidence where there was uncertainty, clarity where there was confusion, and certainty was their doubt. Because we have to know that, you know, the first time buyers, they come to us, and part of this is that we know this market and we're confident moving in this market, but we have to understand that they have fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So we have to come forward with this confidence, clarity, and bring certainty to them so that they have the confidence to move forward. But let's go ahead and kind of role play a little bit about this particular dialogue. There's a few talking points that I created as slides, and these are going to be like bullet points that you're going to want to come back to time and time again with your buyers. We will script this out, but a little bit of this, we're going to kind of work on it dynamically, meaning, you know, I'm inviting your participation here, so we will do some role play. So actually, let's do this. Like, Lauren, if you would, let's role play as if you are you available, Lauren, or should I grab somebody else because I saw you went off screen?
I'm on.
Okay, cool. Let's role play as if you're the buyer. Okay.
Okay, great.
And since we haven't trained on this previously, we'll assume that I didn't do this market education before I'm writing the offer. So we're just getting ready to write the offer. And I want to align your mindset with the market, let's call it. So, Lauren, let me ask you, are you familiar with the dynamics of our market? For example, say list to sales price ratio, inventory, and some of these things?
No, actually, if you can give me some insight on that, that would be great.
It's important to understand because it will make a difference for us to write the appropriate offer and get this house that you want or not. So let's take the time to do that, and let's assume that like we got on a Zoom together, okay? So just to kind of at a high level, Lauren, to talk about the market, real estate is a supply and demand driven market. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, and it's influenced by interest rates and also our stock market prices. When interest rates are really low, money is cheap and buyers push prices higher because buyers will end up paying what they can afford on their monthly mortgage payment for a particular property. So if interest rates drop 1%, so I'm going to throw a couple facts out here. You guys, these might be some things that you'll want to write down that aren't on the slides, but if interest rates go down 1%, a buyer's purchasing power increases 10%. If a buyer was pre-approved for $1 million and rates come down 1%, they're now approved for $1.1 million. So they can offer more money for a house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah. So right now, we're in an environment with the lowest interest rates we've ever seen. So that's one thing that's going to be affecting our market. Okay. The other thing is the stock market. When the stock market goes down substantially, it does soften our real estate market locally. But believe it or not, like with all this craziness going on with COVID and potential, riots and things, our stock market has still been going off. Like, doesn't make any sense to me, but that's the economic reality. So those are two factors that are kind of in favor of actually pushing prices a little bit higher. On the supply and demand side, the thing to understand as we start to look at prices, Lauren, is that Silicon Valley has consistently been a low inventory market. And because of that, it's been a seller's market. Just to give you a big picture, a high level overview on this, when we talk about inventory, it's how many months of supply of homes do we have? So for example, if we had 4,000 homes on the market, 1,000 homes sold per month, we would say that's 4 months of inventory. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in Silicon Valley, consistently, we very rarely get over 2 months of supply, 2 months of housing stock. So we have half the inventory of the national average. But this is not all bad. So on this next slide, this is a writer downer. And so Lauren, because of this, the great thing about buying a home in this market is that our appreciation is double the national average. It's 7.66% per year versus 3.8% for the US. Okay.
Okay.
And because of that, I'm going to switch to our other thing here. Because of that, this is what we've seen happen with real estate prices over the last 40 years. I affectionately like to call what you see in front of you the real estate equity escalator. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the net effect of it is that our prices go down. I'm sorry, go down. Our prices go up 50% every 5 years and 100% every 10. And as we go through and go in to write our offers, and if I ever lean on you in the sense that we need to maybe stretch a little bit for a higher price, I'm going to ask you, Lauren, I'm going to say, Lauren, remember, it's 50% every 5 years and 100% every what?
10.
Yeah, 50% every 5 years and 100% every 10. So what we want to do, as I'm going to do a little time out here as like the sales professionals, you want to get that embedded in your client's mind so that you can lean on it as an anchor to draw upon, or you can lean on it as a reference to say, guys, remember what I said, 50% every 5 years, 100% every what? 10, just so that like that gets embedded in their mind. Because if that fear or resistance comes up, right, we want to be able to bring them back to a reference point that they know. So so 7.66% per year is what's caused this. Now, that's the escalator that like I really want to help you get on. And I'm sure, Lauren, you've ridden an escalator before?
Yes.
You have. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying pretty much everybody has. Have you ever seen a child the first time they go to get on an escalator?
Yeah, they're just staring at the floor.
Yeah. And then when they go to get on the first time, do they get on the first time?
No, never.
Not usually. What usually happens?
They step back.
Yeah, they put their toe on and then they step back, right?
Yeah.
And what happens to the step that they didn't step on? Where does it go?
It continues to go up.
It continues to go up. So it goes up and away from them. So my job right now is not only to help you get a great home, but to get you on this real estate equity escalator. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So then from here, we really need to look at like how big are these steps on this real estate equity escalator? Like how high do we have to step to get on and where do we need to go? And so for that, I just want to share some information with you. And Lauren, we're looking in Cambrian, right?
Yes.
Okay. We're looking in Cambrian. So I'm going to pull up MLS real quick here. Switch screens. Switch screens. And we're looking, let's do a little search here. We're looking between 1.3 and 1.5, right?
Yes.
And we're looking in 95124?
Yep.
Okay, got it. And I'm gonna go back. So what we wanna do right now, Lauren, is we wanna find out like what's the most recent data we can find to see how big these steps are on the escalator. So how far and how much do we have to step up potentially over the asking price to get our foot on this escalator, okay?
Okay.
So I did a search here and I looked for homes in the last 30 days that closed in 95124 on our price, and let's just take a look. So let's go view results. The first one here. So this is 1808 Comstock. It's right in our price range, 1,800 square feet. They came on the market, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They came on the market on the 20th, and they went into contract 3 days later. So they sold pretty quickly. Oh, what happened there? Sorry, guys. And so you see here where it says list price.
Uh-huh.
What does it show they listed for?
13488.
Yeah, and then let's look at the sale price. What's that sale price?
1433.
Got it. So that's about close to $90,000 over asking, right?
Yeah.
And that was 3 days on the market.
Okay.
So homes that are priced well and look good will go quickly. This second one, what did they list for?
147.
Yep. And they sold for
1419.
so they sold a little bit less. They went on the market on the 3rd of March and they sold on the 20th. So they didn't sell right away, right? So there was probably not multiple offers to compete with on this one, okay? So no multiple offers, sold after a couple weeks time, offers came in slowly, and that actually sold under. Let's look at the next one. I can move the next one. This one looks like they sold relatively quickly. They listed on the 20th. They sold 14 days after. Let's see, they did actually change their price once. So they listed at $1,450,000. They reduced the price on May 1st, and they sold, look at that, in 3 days. Again, 3 days, and they sold for
They sold for 1,000
They
over.
sold, they sold a little bit over asking.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Um, let's go back and take a look at the next one. This one listed on the 10th, sold on the 14th, so 4 days on the market. And again, looks like it sold. What's the difference there?
Sold for 2,000.
You sold for a little over asking.
Yeah.
Here's another one, sold in 2 days. Okay. Listed $1,250,000, sold
About 100 over.
100 over, right? This one looks like it sold 15,000 over asking. This one sold in 10 days, right around asking. This one sold in almost took a month to sell, came on the 3rd and didn't sell until the 27th, and sold a little bit under. So are you seeing a pattern here?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it looks like they're going for over asking.
If they're going to sell quickly, there'll be a lot of interest. If we run up against competition, they're probably going to go over. If they've been on the market a while and there's not any other competing buyers, we probably can offer closer to asking. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So what I'm also going to do, guys, I will have done my homework to identify a couple of the most recent pending comps and get obviously any intel that you can there. And I would go into the pending comparables as well and use any of those comparables on the pending side that have gone over, right? And so, Lauren, what I want to emphasize to you is that, again, my job is to help you get a great house, but also to help you get on this real estate equity escalator. Because if we don't get it right, and I need you to be confident and willing to follow my lead, because if we don't get it right, what ends up happening is just like the child who's going to get on that escalator for the first time, that step keeps moving away from you. And in our market, in the months of January and February, if this market is going up, which it looks like it is, it can move as fast as 10% in 2 months. And I would hate to see, not be able to be chasing the market up and pay an extra $100,000 for a house because we missed the market on the first or second time around.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So everyone else who's online, if you could come off mute, like we're working with some dialogues and little bits and pieces here that we've kind of strung together. So I want to ask those of you who are online, what pieces of dialogue or things as we've shared, do you feel like, yeah, I could do that, I could say that, or is there anything that, anything that it doesn't make sense or we could refine or tune? But I think the power of using a metaphor, to reframe people's mindset is powerful. So the escalator, and then the metaphor of a child asking them, have you ever seen a kid for the first time try to get on an escalator? They go and they put their toe on it, right? And they back away, and they go put their toe on it and they back away. And that step just keeps moving away from them. So we don't want to do that. We want to know, that first step that we go to get on the escalator, how high do we have to step to make sure we get on? Thoughts and feedback.
I really like the mindset approach. I mean, I've used it in different sales environments I've been in, everything from back in the day, from cars to loans to software. Once you set them here, because they're going to come in here, you create yourself a great cushion for it. Even if you're a little bit overly conservative, that's fine. That way it kind of takes them out of where they think they're going to go. And then it shows them that you're going to drive the conversation. You're not just going to be an order taker and let them drive the conversation with whatever it is they have in mind.
Well, yeah. So in order to be able to do that, you have to edify your status as an expert, right? So that's where the education piece on this market comes from. So that's why I'm telling y'all, like, don't go into the process of writing an offer for your buyer until you've taken the time to educate them on the market. because otherwise they're going to go with what they feel comfortable with. And their comfort zone is always going to be smaller than yours because they don't have the knowledge on the market that you do. So good point. And I also invite, like, if one of you guys is using a strategy or a tactic or a dialogue that you're like, oh, this works awesome, you know, with my buyers, I encourage you to kind of toss some of those things out here, because this isn't intended this to be a monologue. Like, this is training, but it's dynamic, and we're working on this together to come up with these scripts and talk track, master this market of the moment.
Nneka, I have something.
Sure.
So to go along with what you said, I think one thing that I do is as I'm talking to them, because, you know, we have people that think the market is going to drop 200K for the home. And so a lot of times when everything that you did, I do a lot of that. And then I go a step further to like open some of them and have them walk them through the pictures and all that. And I say, if we could go back in time, would you have bought this house? Because this house sold closer to your price point, but look at how much work it needs. Do you have an excess of this amount of money on top of your down payment to get this house? So I literally walk them through probably 2 or 3 of them until they kind of say, oh, I get it. And then from that, I go to your chart to talk about, you're waiting for the market to drop 200K for that house in this zip code, but it's never done that. So will you be sitting on the sidelines forever type thing?
Awesome. I like that.
That sounds great.
So let me I'm just curious. So as let me pull this back up. Anybody else have anything to share? I'm going to pull up one thing while we're looking.
I'll share something with the group. One of the things that helps me with the buyers is to sort of break down the difference in mortgage payment and down payment. So I'll usually talk with the lender beforehand, and I'll say, what's the mortgage payment at this price and what's the mortgage payment at this price? And usually it's only like $100 or something like insignificant. So you can just ask the client, do you have $100? And so that's been kind of helpful for me.
Got it. So we use that, we call that principle, right? Reducing it down to the ridiculous. So if you believe it's an extra 20 grand for where they need to bump their next offer up to, you're saying you'll break it down on the monthly mortgage payment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much more in down payment and how much more mortgage payment is this going to cost?
Yeah. And so another, you might want to write this down. This is a truism, and it's a good talk track, is that you don't live in the price, you live in the payment. You don't live in the price of the house, you live in the monthly payment. Write this down. You don't live in the price of the house, you live in the monthly payment. All right, so what we mean by that is the economic reality, right? If you buy a house for $1.5 million and your payment is $4,000 a month, every month you're not thinking about the $1.5 million, you're thinking about the $4,000. That's your economic reality, where you're like, okay, I have my job, I got to make sure I manage my budget, my expenses. So that's your economic reality, day in, day out, month in, month out, right? And you know, so that, to Ryan's point, that's where you can say, you know, hey, is an extra $100 a month, is that feasible for you? Can you live with that? Because here's what I know, right? If we buy this house and 5 years from now, it's, what's 50% of $1.3 million? It's $2 million. You know, are you going to be upset that we didn't get it for $1.310 million versus $1.325 million? No, you're just going to be glad that the house is now worth $2 million. I did go back, by the way, because we were looking at homes between right around the middle of the prices in 95124. And I just went back exactly 5 years just to test our hypothesis. And here's what prices were 5 years ago. So this might be another thing you could show your clients, right? You go back the 30 days prior to today, 5 years ago, and look and see what the prices were. So we were looking right around the middle price points, and we were at, let me sort these by price. So we were looking, so 900 to $1 million. And we were looking around the 1.4 right now. So close to 50%. Wasn't quite exactly 50% because we've come down a little bit maybe, but very close. Because Nneka, you were saying you show them something like that?
Yeah, and then sometimes I even go back and say, let's find when the prices were ever there and see how it works on the chart.
Oh, got it. You're saying like when prices were 20% less?
Well, but what you're talking about here is, yes, I go to a home that was as close as possible to where they think the market's going to fall to. And I show them that and say, would you have bought this home a year ago or 6 months ago, whenever it was there? And usually it needs work because, their thinking is that the pricing is going to just hit the bottom.
I like that. So you're basically, so let me run through that example. So if Lauren was saying she wanted to pay, she was waiting for, her budget was $1.4 million, and she was thinking prices were going to come down 20%. So $1.4 million and 20% is 280,000. So $1,220,000. And that was, you're looking for the same size of house?
Yeah, I try to find the same size, and obviously, I show them down below where it's like 5 homes possible or whatever. And as I'm not seeing that, I go through the motions, and then eventually like, sorry, we got to lower the square footage. We got to lower the bedroom count. Would you have bought in this house because this is what would have been available to you?
Got it. Yeah, it's like 2 years ago, 2016, 17, 18 is where most of this stuff was. And then you'll look at some of these?
Yeah, I'll go through them. I'll go through them with them to see, to have them tell me what they think about the house, and, and remind them that our market only reduced, I go back to your chart. If our market only reduced 10% and whatever, right? How are we to that place? You just got to be realistic. And I just let them kind of do the whole, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. There was one of my sales trainers at one point said, a man convinced against his will is of the same persuasion still. Right? You can't tell them, you have to show them.
Yep.
You have to just lead them to the conclusion through some skilled questioning. But there are some facts that we can drop on them, right? We have double the national average for appreciation, 7.66% per year. And then to get them to understand, our market appreciates 50% every 5 years, 100% every 10.
Brett, this is Lin-Lin. I wanted to add something about the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
With first-time home buyers, they're a lot of times fixated like on the list price. And I always go back to who the listing agent is, look back in their MLS track record to see what their list and their sold has been, because sometimes there's a correlation there. And the fact that Ken De Leon listed his condo in Palo Alto for $1 basically means that, and it still went to market value, that list price is a market strategy.
Yeah, I like that. So Lin-Lin's strategy, guys, is that she'll look up who the listing agent is, look up all the last properties that they've listed and sold, and what was their list to sales price ratio. Does that guy or gal have a consistent pattern in how they price in relation to where their target price is? I like that. That's great.
And the other thing is, to Joe and to Ryan's point is, about like Joe saying anchoring high, Ryan saying those 3 price points. What I would do if I'm going into a competitive offer situation is I will definitely anchor them high, but say, okay, well, here are the 3 possible scenarios. So why don't we get, like Ryan said, the net sheets on those or the mortgage payments on those, so you understand your black and white cost at the end of the month. And then in addition, let's do a first page of the RPA in 3 different price points. So while I'm there presenting to the agent, I already know that my client's already committed to the highest. I'm trying to come in with the lowest. But if I'm finding out, hey, you know, this is going to be a competitive offer situation, and maybe there's going to be like, you know, 8 or 10 offers, then we will magically slip in the highest number into that offer.
So there's some really good stuff that Lin-Lin just shared there. Besides the fact of researching the listing agent and seeing how they typically price the property, I think this idea that, because here's what we know, right? We, from the mind, coming back to the mindset perspective, is that buyers will have some fear. They're naturally, because this is a new environment for them, they're naturally going to have some fear and trepidation about, you know, offering too much, making a mistake, offering the highest price. So combine that with the fact that we talked about, you don't live in the price of the house, you live in the monthly payment. So the genius in what she's saying by creating a mortgage scenario, like let's do 3 possible offer prices. And obviously you're going to put that higher offer price that's going to be at the upper edge or just outside their comfort zone. So you can stretch them there. You've got something that's in the middle, probably where it needs to be, and something at the lower end a little bit. I don't know. How did you position those 3 prices, Lin-Lin? How would you come to propose those 3, you know, low, medium, and high price? Like,
So I would go in kind of the number of offers. Like for instance, if there's only 1 or 2 offer, we'll go in at this lower range. If there's going to be 4 or 5 offers, we'll come in at this mid range. If there's going to be like completely like several offers, you know, 7 to 10 or plus, we're going to go in at the highest range. And then I also say, how much do you want this house on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being you wouldn't shed a tear. 10, you would be like, okay, you know what? I'm heartbroken. I'm going to go for it. And then at that point, you kind of know where they stand in terms of, yeah. Then
what about when you, how do you determine that range for the price range that you propose for the property? Because you're not asking them for what they want to offer. You're telling them, hey, here's 3 scenarios, right? You're saying, here's a low case scenario, here's a likely, and here's something at the higher end if there's more competition. How do you determine, you know, how far to stretch those prices?
Depending on how much they want the house on that scale of 1 to 10. If they really, really want it, and they're just like, Lin-Lin, we would be heartbroken. I mean, I've had clients that would say, I know you're trying your real best for us, but we need this house. Like, we want this house. Like, this house is down the street from my mom. We got to get it, you know? And so at that point, I do push them very, very high because I know what they're qualified for. And I talk to their lender and ask their lender right up front, hey, you know, this is a competitive situation. Would you feel comfortable if I put in a non-contingent finance offer for them? Okay. And if it does not appraise, then they'll ask me, okay, well, what do you think the range is? Okay, we're probably overpaying by $50,000. They really want this house. If it doesn't appraise, are we going to have an issue?
Got it. So let me unpack that then. So what you're doing is where you place this low, middle, medium, and high price. Like when you go to propose, here's 3 scenarios to the buyer as far as their offer prices. You create that range, you calibrate that based on their desire for that particular property. And that question you said was, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is it? How disappointed would you be if we don't want it? Or how bad do you want this house?
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you would not shed a tear. Hey, Lin-Lin, let's move on to the next property. 10, you'd be heartbroken, devastated if you did not get that. Where on that range do you lie?
Got it. So that's great. I mean, that's some genius right there as well. So calibrating your suggested offer price range to their desired level for the property. Obviously, that's going to be tempered by their pre-approval amount, you know, on the upper end, possibly,
of course,
depending on the buyer. But yeah, so it's interesting that we want to calibrate the range, the offer price, the ceiling of the offer price range to their answer on a scale of 1 to 10. And that's good because, right, like our goal is to lead them, to push them to where we think they need to be, but also to not break rapport, you know, to the point where they completely jam up and they go, no, we can't do that, or we don't want to do that. So I like that. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions for Lin-Lin around that strategy of really getting the buyer to stretch for the max?
Yeah, Lin-Lin, what worked for me is very similar to what you did. Is I just said, hey, what's the price where you would just be comfortable letting that house go? You know, if someone else paid $1,250,000 for it, are you going to come back to me and say, hey, Joe, I would have paid $1,250,000? You know, like, what is that price? And then that way you kind of know they're high, and you can kind of use that and keep that in mind.
I've done the same thing. The dialogue I've used for that is I'd say, hey, Joe, you know, if we offer $1,250,000, if that's the kind of the number I think that they're thinking, and somebody else gets it for $1,260,000, would you feel
Right.
like we missed out?
Right.
And then if they say, yeah, I'd say, okay, well then if somebody else gets it for $1,275,000,
Right.
and where is that? So sometimes it takes actually walking them through a ladder, like with questions like that, to really unpack it. Because sometimes people don't know where their own internal set point is.
Right.
But I think the takeaway here is, you know, ultimately we want to calibrate, we want to stretch that offer price as high as we can to the max of their comfort zone. And then probably that upper third tier offer, like Lin-Lin's suggesting, is going to be a stretch at the top of their comfort zone.
So Brett, one of the things that we have very analytical people in the Valley, and when I'm bringing them around and maybe we're seeing 5 to 7 properties, this was, you know, back in the day where you could actually go physically put them in your car and drive them around, is literally after every single property we would see, I'd give them each a sheet. So the couple each would have a sheet with the property, and I would say, okay, each of you, on a scale of 1 to 10, they would each rate it, give me 3 positive, 3 negatives, every single property they've gone to. They love that. And then by the time we sit down, after seeing 5 or 7 properties, sometimes they all mix together, but then they can say, oh yeah, collectively, you rated as 7, I rated it as 6. So now we have, 13. So now we have 6.5 for this house. Versus this house, you had a 10, you had a 10, we had a 10. So they're looking at those notes, and they're able to understand the number that they've given each home. And then literally by the end of, 3 or 4 showings, it's like, let's write an offer, because we've already have enough data points here.
I really like that. I've done some, in my days when I was working with buyers, that was my common practice with buyers is, it's like, okay, one, the 3 questions when you take them through the house, they walk through the house. One is, what do you like or not like about the place? Because if it's a lot they don't like, then we're not even going to ask the second question. The second question was, could you see yourself living here? And the third was, do you want to write an offer? And then lastly is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are those elements? And a few things that you liked or didn't like. I like that. Anybody else have any good nuggets on things that you're doing to either, calibrate the buyer's desire level for a property when you're getting ready to craft that offer? Or, no? One of the other things that you can do, let me see this on call.
Hey, Brett, this is Omid here. I'd like to share that tactic that I used previously.
Sure.
So what I do is I always tell all my clients, like going into an offer deadline, there's usually going to be other offers. If not, our offer will look a lot better if we already wrote one. But I'll have 3 offers ready to go in my side app, and I ask them. I say, "What's your low, mid, and high range?" And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 different offers for you. We're going to get them all 3 of them signed, and I'm not going to send any of them until you approve. And so right off the bat, I already know what their low is going to be. I already know what their high is going to be. And on offer day, what I do is I ask them, all right, so which one do you feel comfortable with? So they'll usually start with the low one, and then I'll try to gauge the seller's agent. If anything, we'll send in the mid, and then if things get really crazy, we'll send the high. And then from there, I've never had to go, higher than that, because it's pretty much their max, unless we get like a crazy counter. But that tactics worked really well, especially since we don't have to scramble to get their documents signed for, to rebuttal or try to beat somebody else out.
Love it. Lin-Lin, that was kind of what you said you were doing as well? The page one
I had all of them signed.
Got it. Yeah. So I think it's, the biggest common denominator here is, guys, let's be prepared. And it's preparing the mindset of the buyer, preparing the buyers for the mindset that where they need to be. The other thing that I'll share real quick, you guys can find this, if you haven't been using it, you can use this in addition to showing the buyer the actual properties and the price range that they're looking to buy, like what the last step is traded at. But on the stats section of MLS, you can go ahead and pull up, if you click on stats up there, you can enter in a zip code and a time period. This is just looking at 95124. You can see things were going 8 to 10% over before COVID. They come down, but I'm from what we're seeing, it sounds like they're going to be ticking back up. And that's where you could say, hey, look, like just even last month, things were still selling 2% over. And those are properties that went into contract during shelter in place. We're coming out of shelter in place and the buyer activity is a straight thing. But the more things I think that, one is calibrate their personal desire for the property, and two, make sure we educate them. 50% every 5 years, 100% every 10. It's hard to make a mistake buying a house. You can't overpay. So we want to get you on the real estate escalator. Any other thoughts or questions before we shift? And then we're going to talk about tactics. Most of this has been about mindset and the market, but then we're going to pivot and talk a little bit about tactics on writing winning offers. Kelly, you've been pretty quiet. You've been pretty successful this year. Any nuggets that you care to share? I know you have been, Nneka probably have some of the highest number of buyer contracts accepted this year.
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off everything that I did, they basically already touched upon, like especially Nneka, I learned, sat in on a few buyer appointments with her. So a lot of what she does, I do, where I just basically after learning of what they're looking for during the buyer presentation, even before, we get the commitment sometimes, I'll pull up the MLS and I'll type in exactly what it is they're looking for, to the price range, to the location, to their criteria, to see, how many homes there are available. And if there's nothing, then we go back in time to see how much has, recently sold. And if there hasn't been that much, then I'll say, all right, well, as you can see, for exactly what it is you're looking for, there's not a whole heck of a lot that's sold. So when we do come across the perfect property, you're either going to have to jump on it, or you're going to have to compromise on what it is you're looking for and either expand your price, less bedroom, whatever it is, to plant that seed in their head before we start looking if they're realistic or not.
Got it. So that messaging on the talk track, right, that you're sharing is because we're in a low inventory market, to get what you want, we're either going to need to compete or compromise.
Yeah.
Compete or compromise is the thing to write down or to think about as a talk track. In a low inventory market, we're either going to need to compete or compromise to get you into a home. Cool. Anybody else have any nuggets to share on any of the things you're doing to calibrate your buyer's price point or things? And then if not, we'll switch to tactics. Cool. So this is going to be a revisit, and as we go through this document or this checklist, if there is something that you guys are doing that's ninja to get your offers accepted, let's add it to it. But just going through to win a bidding war, you have to have the best offer, obviously. It's going to be a combination of price and terms. Number one, do your homework on the market. This is kind of what we were just talking about. Contact all the pending sales that are under contract, because those are going to be the most relevant data point for where the market is. Write an offer that is higher than the last neighborhood sales price. If you're in a multiple offer environment, likely there will have been multiple offers on properties that have sold recently. You're going to have people so this is good to tell your buyer right there. Look, the last one that just sold around the corner, they had 4 offers and that thing went for $1,275,000. So there's 3 people who missed out on that, and they're going to be offering more this next time around. It's not going to sell that for what that one went for, because they're going to be offering more because they know they missed it and they didn't offer enough. So, yeah. You'll have people who missed that. So I would tell that to your buyer. One additional idea is an escalation clause. Anybody used escalation clauses successfully?
Not successfully.
I have.
Who was that, Lauren? I mean, that was Nneka?
Yeah. I have, and each time I've used it, it worked, but I've used it, I think, 3 times. It's super, super important. Brett always says, don't just spring this on them. So 2 things I would say. Definitely find a very strategic way to bring it up to them shortly before the offer deadline. And the reason
When you say them, you mean the listing agent, yeah?
Yes, the listing agent. The reason for that, at least what I've learned from Brett, is shortly before the offer deadline, because you don't want them talking to 10 other agents and talking about how the one agent wants to use an escalation and then other people consider it. And then the second thing is you don't want to spring it on them because a lot of agents do feel like it's cheating in a sense. So if they get a bad taste in their mouth from you asking, you really want to have that conversation with your client that, hey, we can use this, but if I don't have the agent on my side to kind of fight for it, they don't have to necessarily, like, it's not contractually obligating that they have to go with our offer because we gave this like gap in between. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so for those of you who haven't heard or been familiar with an escalation clause, they're not as common in our market, but they are common in other markets. For example, Seattle, they're used very frequently. And ultimately, if we think about it, the benefit to the listing agent is, hey, look, if we think about it, if we're presenting this to a listing agent is, my client, they really like the property and they're willing to stretch to offer it. At the same time, they don't want to grossly overpay. So I'd like to do something and we'd like to include an escalation clause. I'm just checking in with you because they are legal. We don't see them that often. There's nothing, not right about them, but I just wanted to, help you understand, because most of the time, many times the listing agent won't know what an escalation clause is. So like she said, you don't want to blindside them. But I think the value that you can say to the listing agent, look, I'm just trying to save you a bunch of back and forth on counters, ultimately. So I'm going to write this escalation clause, and just so you guys know what that is, where I've highlighted it there. Buyer will pay X amount higher than the next highest offer, up to a maximum price of, whatever that is. Yeah, so actually this part does not go in the actual document. That's the essence of an escalation clause. And they can be effective. The one thing that you also want to be careful of if you do an escalation clause, don't come in at a low price as your starting bid. If we talked about that low, medium, and high, you're going to use this in a competitive situation where you're probably, I have had this backfire where, the client was willing to go to $1.2 million, but he wanted to put the bottom of his escalation clause at $950, and the seller ended up selling the property to a buyer for $1.15 million, and I was like upset at the agent. I was like, well, why didn't you take our offer? He's like, well, your guy started at $950. He didn't really believe that your buyer would go that high. So make sure there's not too big a gap there. Other things, waive your contingencies. This is probably quite obvious. This is something that many of us are doing. Waiving loan contingencies and or property contingencies wherever possible. If you do have a client who is a little nervous about waiving their property contingency, one thing you can do, and I have done this myself, is if they're having an offer deadline, say next sometime, and your client's not comfortable going without a property contingency, and you can tell from your questions with the listing agent that there's going to be competition and probably other people are going to come in with no contingencies, go ahead and ask the listing agent if you can do a pre-inspection. Say, hey, is it possible, I could get my inspector in the property over the weekend. They just want to validate the findings on your inspection reports because we want to come in with a non-contingent offer, no contingencies on the property. My client really just would like to have his guy take a look at it before we do. Is that okay? And, most agents that I've worked with have allowed that. Obviously, if they don't get the house, they lose. Sorry. Hey, guys. The joys of working at home. Coco, you go outside. So that's one thing to consider, is getting those property inspections done up front. Number 5, put a large deposit down. Typical deposits are 3%, but consider when you're talking about earnest money deposit. Earnest. So typical earnest deposits are 3%, but if consider putting down as much as 10%. Anybody done this in the past?
I have. This is Kelly.
Yeah. It gets the attention of the listing agent and the seller, huh?
It does, and a good thing about that too, because if the liquidated damages box is checked, then the most the seller could keep is the 3%. So you're not putting any additional money at risk for your buyer.
Yeah,
Wait,
but
check a box. I didn't know that.
yeah, you have to make sure both parties sign the liquidated damages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I usually ask for 10%, and that does work like a charm.
Great. So if you're not doing that and your client has the additional, money there that they're going to use in the down payment, just explain there's no risk in putting the additional money down, but this makes our offer stand out.
You got to put it down anyways. You're going to be putting it down either at the beginning or towards the end when you sign.
I'm going to consider using the HomeLight 8-day cash flows. Because what I can tell you, that's a differentiator. As a listing agent, if I have a stack of offers and one of them is like anywhere close to the top of the stack, I'm going to call that, if he's all cash and no contingencies, I'm going to call that buyer back and say, hey, look, you were close to the top, you weren't the top, but we like your offer because it's a fast close and there's no contingencies. Would you be willing to come up to X? And then we'd consider, is your buyer open to a counter? So that, in a non-competitive situation, the cash flows, the statistics show if there's not competition, the average discount on a cash buyer is about 3%. So that helps your buyer. And then a competitive situation, you might at least get a callback on, hey, would you be willing to increase your offer? So I implore all of you, if you haven't been using HomeLight, at least get your buyer pre-approved with whoever it is, Shane or Michael, but have them do a second pre-approval with HomeLight cash flows. And that way you can write the offer with the cash flows. If it so happens that the seller doesn't need the super fast close, which sometimes and often is the case, you can pivot and fall back to Shane or Michael or whoever the other lender is as an option. I mean, HomeLight would ideally like to see you close with them if the rates are competitive, but I think there's only a 1% fee for the cash close program. Number 7, write a love letter. If you aren't doing those, obviously we've seen people, sellers, Lin-Lin, I'm sure you can attest to this, that have accepted an offer lowest than the highest offer just because they felt emotionally connected to the buyer on the letter that they wrote.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. Number 8, follow up with a video. So this is a tip that an agent that I know, it was something crazy. He had like a 90% success rate in getting his offers accepted in a multiple offer situation. And the genius in this is, so he would record a video, not the buyer, the agent would record a video just like we're doing on Zoom right now, but he would record it. And then as if he was presenting the offer to the seller in person. So let's say Noriel was the seller, and I'd say, hey, and let's say Julia was the agent, the listing agent. I'd record this video saying, hey, this is Brett Jennings. I just want to tell you about my clients, John and Catherine. They're interested in buying your home. But before I do, I first got to tell you that Julia, your listing agent, like, you are so lucky to be working with her. She is an awesome agent. I've seen her in the marketplace for quite a long time. And you're just really fortunate to be working with an awesome agent like Julia. But let me come and then I'm gonna say, okay, and let me tell you a little bit more about John and Catherine. They really love this house. They really want to purchase this property. And if there's anything that they need to do to improve this offer, if we're close and we're competing, please let us know, because they really would love to move into this property. So if you think about it, he says he can almost guarantee the fact that video will make it and get shown to the seller, because it's so complimentary to the listing agent, right? He's like, hey, let me show you like what this guy has told, how awesome I am, that he's bragging on me. And he had the highest success rate in multiple offer situations of any agent I've ever met. So that's a tip to try. And then number 9, get it done quick. How fast can you get it done? Work with your lender to write as short of close as possible. Oh, I already did put this in here. Consider getting your buyer approved with Home Light Mortgage. They have an 8-day cash close product. So take that out up here. Any other tips or tricks that you guys are using to beat out the competition on multiple offers?
Build a really good relationship with the listing agent and call and chat and follow up. And if you've been eyeing the property for like a week or so, check in, every day or other day, and just say, I don't know, whatever questions you want to ask, but always be top of mind if you're planning on putting an offer in a competitive situation.
Persistent but not pushy.
Yes.
Anybody else that's been a listing agent that you've seen things that other agents have done that have stood out to you and go, you know what? I like this guy or gal.
Lin-Lin has touched on this before. This is Nneka. I like the agents that ask the right questions. I never, literally when they call me, I'm not giving up a ton of info. I want to see what questions they ask me, and I can tell what type of agents they are if they're asking the right questions and in the right ways. So I pay attention to that, because then I know a big thing for me is knowing that they have control over their clients. And if they have control over the conversations with me while they're trying to fight for their clients, then I know that I can trust them in escrow to keep their clients kind of, in line.
Exactly. Someone who can hold it together on the other end.
Yep.
This is Julia. One of the other things is, and Nneka, this kind of follows on what you just said, because I primarily am a listing agent, but when people call on I'm going to submit an offer, I want to know how that person wants to be communicated with. Just like we ask our buyers and our sellers, how do you prefer to be contacted? Because there have been times when, people will say, I can't get a hold of the listing agent, or I can't get a hold of the buyer's agent. So I would say, Nneka, that sounds great. It sounds like you have some really great clients. If, go out and write the best offer you can. And by the way, how do you like to be communicated with? Do you prefer text? Do you want email? You pick up the phone? You tell me, because if we're going to get, do this together, I want to make sure that I'm reaching you in the way that's most convenient for you. Because you can root out a lot of agents when they go, oh, I don't really care. Well, you should care. It was a direct question. So I liked that. And then Kelly, I also like what you said about getting to know the listing agent. I am working with buyers who, I think you all heard me, they're VA, and they're, I just think it's going to be super competitive for them. And so I am setting the appointments and following, contacting every listing agent and giving them a little bit of a heads up about these guys. They're strong buyers, and, they've been very honest with me. Okay, well, if they have an ability to go conventional, you might suggest they do that, which I have already talked to them about that. But you also find out which sellers are military, and then there's a common ground there, which can help with the love letter down the road. So it's putting all the pieces together.
Cool.
Great advice.
Great advice.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other thoughts or nuggets to add to our list? And this is in the Google Drive. I believe it is. I'll share it again right now. Sale, the real experts. That'll come over to you. It's in the Drive. If you look up winning in multiple offers, you'll see this kind of as a checklist. But we'll continue to update this as we go forward.
Hey, this is Nneka. I chatted with Lauren. She already kind of confirmed that document folder that you guys created. It'd be cool if all of our scripts are kind of in one place in there. And I think she said she's already going to add it there instead
Okay,
of
cool.
for this. Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, Brett, something I could add to trying to win offers.
Yes.
So, the most important, I think, or one of the important things is to build rapport with the listing agent. And I always start name dropping. And if I see they work for Keller Williams, I'll bring you up. And most likely they know you. So I get in there, and then sometimes I'll even say, just to kind of dangle the carrot, they'll be like, yeah, I'm so busy. What can I do for you? I'm like, yeah, we're so busy too. We got 30 listings coming on the market in the next month. And then they're like, oh, really? Where? Like, I got buyers too that are looking. So I'm like, yeah, definitely. Like, help me out and I'll help you out, type of thing. So building that rapport with the listing agent has really gone a long way. I know, like, sometimes I'll name drop somebody that they've done business with. And, even if there's other offers that are higher than theirs, getting the listing agent on your side and pushing their clients to kind of work with you, because the professionalism. And then, of course, the other thing I do is the offer presentation. I don't do it in person, but I do like a PDF offer presentation for them. And thanks to you, you send me that email. I itemize the terms, so it's easy for the listing agent when they open the email. It shows them how many contingencies there are. It shows them what the terms are, so it's easy to read. It's not just a contract. And then I have the seller letter part of the offer presentation, and basically doing their job. Make it easy for them if they got a few offers, and even if there aren't any offers, it just looks even better to get that price reduction or just win the seller's heart. So overall, I do throw the family photos in there, ask them to write something nice about the home that they liked, and send that over to them. And most likely, with those links that we have from side, a lot of agents have commented like, wow, this is so professional. How did you guys do that? It actually wasn't me. Our company's got cutting edge technology, and we want to make it simple for you. And we've got an awesome team behind us with client care coordinators and directors.
So you're selling them on how easy it will be to work with us.
Absolutely. And then when
Cool.
they go to talk to their clients, they're like, here are the offers, but this agent, like, this is like your guy. Like, this is going to be the deal that's going to be easy, no questions asked, like smooth.
So
And
yeah. So I love that. And I think if you try the video to the seller where you talk up the listing agent, that then it's kind of a slam dunk. But just on the final point, just make sure that you have a cover email that summarizes the offer points. There's nothing more frustrating to a listing agent if they got 10 offers and they got to go ahead and open up every PDF and scan through all the documents to unpack all the offer terms. So make sure every offer that you write when you submit it, you have a quick summary of the offer terms, just like this. I know the side app gives us the links for all these other things, but make sure that you put those offer terms right there in front and center, because that makes it a lot easier for your listing agent. And as a listing agent, when I see that, I'm like, oh, great, this person's going to be easy to work with. I already like this guy. Cool. Well, we are running over time. Lin-Lin and I got to jump to another call. And any last thoughts or questions before we wrap?
Just last thing for what Omid just said, I really do want to stress what he said about like dropping Brett's name or whoever's name. We have a Rex chat. Like anytime you're writing something, Omid helped me get a really, really tough one because he was friends with the best friend of the listing agent. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't have got it without him. So just ask the group, hey, does anyone know this agent? And drop that name card in there because we have such a big group. So I think that's a huge deal.
Cool. Hey, well, whatever you guys do, don't let your buyers not get on the real estate equity escalator, right? Help them take that first step because we don't, they don't want to chase the market up, and we want to help them get into that great home at a great price. So go crush it and have a great day. And Lauren and I are available as you need us. Have a great one.
Thank you.